A few weeks ago I got sent the largest model I've ever put together, let alone painted. It was a massive, playable ship by Archon Studio from their upcoming GameFound campaign, Dungeons & Lasers Porthaven. Funnily enough, this video is sponsored by Dungeons & Lasers Porthaven, not least because they supplied the ship. Of course, it's not the only thing available from the upcoming Porthaven campaign. There's also 4 new core sets in the form of the tavern, the bazaar, the port, and the ship's crew. And if you follow the campaign now, then you will get the free McCall Griffin miniature should you back it when it launches. But the ship is the true centerpiece of this campaign. It's 28 inches long, it's 22 inches tall, and it's got a fully playable interior. Like, they did not need to go this hard, but they did. You can find a link to the campaign in the description down below and the pinned comment. I highly recommend checking it out because this thing is ridiculous in the best way. My first job, funnily enough, was assembling this beast, turning it from this pile of sprues into something that could sit proudly on display in our D&D room. The catch being that once it was put together, I wanted to get it painted and on display within 2 days, max. You can guess how well that went, can't you? Now, understandably, this was initially something of an intimidating endeavour, but it actually wasn't too bad. I was really impressed by how well this went together, given the size of it, given that it's kind of unwieldy. And the instructions are nice and clear, but I will say, with the benefit of hindsight, you might be better off painting some of this stuff before it's assembled, because that would make it just that little bit easier. I only mention this now because if you're planning to back the GameFound campaign, that's something that you should know before receiving your giant ship in the post. Having assembled this absolute beast, I then rattle-canned the hell out of it with a black base coat, and then it was time for some serious airbrushing. And within moments of starting, I realised that, yeah, airbrushing was definitely the right call. I mean, look at the size of this thing. The only thing that made this slightly more complicated than it needed to be was the fact that I really wanted to use Rhinox hide from Citadel because I'm very familiar with it, and it's been the basis of my wood recipe, I guess, from the beginning. And of course, in practical terms, what that means is I had to thin down a lot of Rhinox hide. Okay, that is the Rhinox hide. That's the sort of brown base down and ready for the next stage, but I'm already thinking to myself that took so long. That took so much longer than I thought it would. Way quicker than trying to dry brush it, I think, but still, even though I know this is a big model with a lot of stuff on it, I'm still kind of adjusting to just how big a model it is and how much ground there is to cover on this thing. And that's ignoring the fact that, I mean, on this, I haven't actually done the underside. I've left the underside. The underside is still plain black. Now, to be honest, I'm not going to paint the underside because I don't need to. I'm not going to turn it over. That one deck isn't going to like fly off and go upside down, so I'm not too bothered. But still, even skipping a good amount of like surface area, it's taken a while. The thing is, I've really shot myself in the foot in some ways because what I want to do is get a similar wood to this. I really like how this came out. It was a very quick job, but you know what? I like the overall texture. I like the colour. That's how I painted a lot of the stuff that I've done that is wooden for all my D&D terrain and the like. And I kind of want to do something similar here, but dry brushing felt like it would be something of a mistake once I'd got it all base coated. Really, I think there's just no way around it. It's just too big a model to do quick. But that being said, I think we can get it to a serviceable state if we move on to the next phase nice and quick, which is to do something a little lighter. It's not going to be exactly the same as this smaller boat, because it's not going to be the same as this smaller boat, because I'm not dry brushing all of this. I've got quite a big chunk of it on the desk in front of me. That's why I keep looking down. There we go. Got all of that as well. But I feel like we can get relatively close. Maybe in a decent amount of time. We'll see. Let's just carry on and see what happens, I guess. Watching the lighter brown go onto this model made such a huge difference, and it gave me a massive boost of confidence. And I started to think to myself that actually this is working out pretty well. This is way quicker than I thought it would be, and this definitely means that I could be in with a solid chance of getting done what I want to get done in a very short time frame, considering the size of this thing, right? This confidence may have been slightly misplaced, it turns out. I know there's still a lot to do. We've only done 2 small parts, but I've got to say right now, it's actually looking a bit more promising. Introducing this, the dark ochre colour from Vallejo, has made a massive difference to those small parts, and it's already feeling like it's going to end up looking decent way sooner than I thought it would based on that first darker coat. So I'm pretty excited now. I'm actually thinking this could be something that ends up getting done. Potentially, maybe. I'm jumping the gun, aren't I? We'll see.
Hours later.
I can't believe we're already at a point where, I mean, that looks okay. That's alright. Obviously there's loads of overspray. But look, there's colours. There's brown and black. It looks kind of like wood. I've still got to highlight all of it. There's going to be so much dry brushing. But, like, that's okay for a couple of hours. I'll take that. I'll take that. Oh, man. Oh, wait, hang on. There's a little scrape. Ah, boo. That's fine. It's not like I'm done. It's not like it's finished, is it? I think I might be done with the airbrush. I think I might actually be done. I don't have to have the window open. I'll be able to breathe in the room without there being a bajillion paint fumes. And I don't have to have the respirator on anymore, which is really nice because that was starting to make me feel like my head was being squished. So, we've got our various bits. We have some nice wood texture going on. It's still got the depth to it, but it's got a nice variety in colour. Overall, I'm happy with where we're at, but I feel like it needs something a little lighter, and I want something a bit extra to just lift the textures a bit more. So I'm going to turn to my old favourite, Ice Yellow by Vallejo, and I'm going to go mental with a dry brush, and hope that I don't lose my mind before I've dry brushed every plank of wood on this boat, which, given that I decided dry brushing it was probably going to be too difficult, deciding to do it anyway is a choice. That is a choice that I've made, and it's not necessarily a good one, but we'll see how it goes. I feel like I need to explain the love affair that I have with Ice Yellow, because pretty much every model that I paint at some point in some capacity, that model ends up getting just a little hint of Ice Yellow right at the end. You can add it to literally any colour, and it just lifts it a tiny amount, just enough to make a lovely little highlight without being obvious or without it really altering the overall shade of the model. When it comes to doing highlights on larger models, like this for instance, just the tiniest little dry brush lifts everything under it. It is one of my absolute favourite paints, and I've used it for dry brushing pretty much since I started doing dry brushing as a main form of blending. I will never get bored of this paint, and by the time I've finished dry brushing all of the various pieces of this ship, I felt like it added a huge amount to the final tone of the wood and gave it that finish I was really looking for. We've got to a point where we've got some nice highlighted sections on the wood, which means it's not identical, but it's close to this. It's not exactly the same, but I wasn't going to try and dry brush this whole thing. Also, the highlights are coming out really strong on this camera. They're not quite that strong with the naked eye. So, is that a phrase, the naked eye? So I'm happy. I'm happy with the wood. I'm happy with how we've got there. That's what I wanted. I wanted it similar to this. I wanted that really uneven, rough, kind of inconsistent in terms of tone and shade. I don't think that's how wood ages naturally in the real world. I don't care. I want it to look visually interesting on the tabletop when the party is fighting for their life against a bunch of pirates or something like that. So I've just realised I'd never painted the underside of this. Terrible. So That's kind of what I'm after. That's the general vibe that I want from this, and that's what we've got. So having done that, and having got my little highlighted sections, which they really do look very strong on camera, but I promise they're not that severe when I'm looking at them right now. Now we've got that sorted, now we have those lighter spots, we are going to have to do something about all of this stuff. All of the kind of bracing and things, which have got a bunch of overspray all over them, which is totally fine. But I was looking at pictures of, like, Golden Age of Sail ships and that sort of thing, and I think what we're going to be doing is painting this stuff black again. So, making it basically completely pitch black. I might do some edge highlighting if I've got time, but just to bring out, just to, like, add a bit more contrast and just to get rid of some of that overspray that we got from the airbrush. Things like the steps as well, those will be black. I just want to make that stuff a bit more tidy and a bit neater. I don't know what I'm going to do with the various bits of metal. Like, I'm pretty sure some of these bits need to be metal, but I don't know if I want to go gold. A lot of the stuff that I was looking at, a lot of gold filigree everywhere. I don't know if that's what I want for this ship. I feel like I want something just a bit darker. So I might get my old Pro Acryl metal paints out and see if we can get something more silvery, but a bit tarnished as well. That could be quite fun. So, yeah, I guess we'd better start painting all of this stuff. It's getting there. It's getting there, but good grief, it's just such a big model. Every time I pick up a piece of it, I'm like, oh, it's not too bad. And then I remember that there is another entire deck with more detail than this, and then 2 smaller decks to go on top, and then I start panicking. So, let's get on with it, shall we? It is 9 PM. I started doing this at like 11 o'clock this morning. So we've got all of the blacks to do, all of the metallics to do, and guess who didn't really think about the masts? That would be me. That would be me. I forgot about the masts. Now, they are base coated, but what are the chances of getting those done tonight along with all of the black and metallics? Seems a little bit unlikely. I'm not going to lie, seems highly unlikely, but you never know. You never know. We might manage it. I don't think we're going to manage it. Either way, if we're doing this in like a day's 24 hours, right? A day's 24 hours. You could do it in 24 hours and that'll be fine. I'm just bargaining now. I better just get on with it and see what happens, hadn't I? At this point, I was getting a bit tired, but blocking in all of those black sections, that was not particularly difficult work. In fact, there's something incredibly satisfying about just going over something, making it stand out, make it nice and bold, essentially fixing the mistakes that you'd made previously, but in a way that didn't really require anything in the way of extreme concentration or really impressive brush control. I was really just hiding a ton of overspray from the airbrushing. I was just trying to make those beams stand out that little bit more, make it look tidier, and every time I finished one, I was able to look at it and go, you know what, that definitely looks better. I haven't done much, but it's made a difference, and little changes like that, those are some of the most satisfying parts of painting anything for me. Which is a real shame because this went from being incredibly satisfying and quite easy to being incredibly awkward, and it sapped my enthusiasm for it real quick when I realised that trying to paint the beams on the inside of the hull was an absolute nightmare. My hand didn't fit. I didn't think about trying to mask it off to airbrush it, and what was quite a chill and easy experience suddenly turned into something that I didn't really know how to deal with. We've hit a hard impasse here. Painting the black beams on the outside of the ship, totally fine. And in fact, I think painting the beams on the outside of the ship, like that's added quite a lot. A lot of contrast. I think it just looks a lot better. Painting the ones on the inside of the ship, there is no good way to do this. There just isn't. If I use the airbrush, the chances are I'm going to overspray and get a load of black all over the painted wood walls. Using a normal brush, I mean, how do you get in there? How'd you get in there? I'll answer the question for you. You don't. You don't really get in there. It's 10:30, and it has taken me almost as much time to paint those 3 as it did to paint the entirety of one side. I've started. I've got to finish it off, but there's a chance this could end up looking really janky. And I don't want it to look janky, but it might look janky. And yet, for some reason, I carried on trying to paint, and as you can see here, I don't know what I was doing. I have no idea. I should have stopped, I should have done something else, I should have just left that for another day, at a point where I wasn't quite tired, and thought about it more logically, but I got into that position where I just decided, this has to be done. And it has to be done now. So you just got to suck it up and work through it. Sometimes that's not the right call. Okay, lower deck's done. It's fine. It's not fine. It's kind of bad on the inside. But you know what? The outside looks fine. So we're going to leave it at that. Time for the upper deck. At least there isn't as much stuff to have to, like, put my hand in at stupid angles. So this should be easier. It should be. Please. I wasn't completely incorrect when I said that it should be easier. In fact, when I was painting this section, it was okay. The only thing is there was more in the way of little nooks and crannies, little details. There are a lot more flowing sections, and I hadn't considered the fact that the side of the upper hull is absolutely covered in crosses. Crosses with small sections that you need to get in without affecting the actual timber underneath, and that turned out to be far more of a problem than I really thought it would at the time. I'm getting a bit sloppy now. I don't want to mess this up completely and have a bunch of touch-ups to do, so I'm going to pause it. I'm going to pause it there. We'll pick this up tomorrow and hopefully finish it tomorrow, because we haven't quite managed it today. But you know what? It's so big that, like, even doing this, just this, I'd have been pretty happy with. Doing that, plus the upper decks, plus doing that. I mean, for the most part, getting all of the colours down, except for the metallics, that's not bad for, what, started at 11, took a few breaks. I mean, I had to take a few breaks because of children. I mean, I've probably been painting about 8 hours today. It's not terrible. I don't think that's terrible for 8 hours. Could be better. Could definitely be better. But I don't think it's terrible. But we'll pick it up tomorrow. And then maybe we'll finish it tomorrow and I can stop having to absolutely ruin myself in an attempt to get this done way quicker than is actually sensible. See you tomorrow. Okay, it's the next day. It's gone 11 o'clock. I wanted to start a lot earlier than this, but something came up this morning that I had to take care of, and so now I've got about 4 hours until I need to go and pick the kids up from school. How much can I get done in 4 hours? Hopefully, all of this. Hopefully. All of the black and all of the metal stuff, which I still don't know whether to do iron or gold. I'm still undecided. I guess I'd better make a decision pretty quick because I am really running out of time now. Looking back at this now, it's kind of hilarious that I looked at this upper deck and thought to myself, you know what? Yeah, there's a few crosses here and there, but I reckon I can get this done pretty quick. I mean, after all, it's nowhere near as awkward as trying to do the inside of the lower deck. It's a lot simpler in terms of just hand positioning. It should be fine. I got way less done the evening before than I thought I had. I thought I'd made some really good progress, and it's only looking at it in hindsight that I think I kind of conned myself into thinking that I was pretty far along. I actually had the majority of the black left to do, but that being said, it was a lot easier when I wasn't super tired, and even though it did take absolutely ages, it didn't feel like too much of a chore to begin with anyway. I think the fact is that when you're painting something this big, or something with a bunch of repeated patterns or similar sections, after a while it just gets a bit dull. It becomes rote, it becomes repetitive. It's one of the reasons I don't like batch painting infantry, for instance. Doing exactly the same thing over and over and over and over again, it kind of gets a bit dull, and I start to get fidgety, and I start to feel like I should be doing something else, something different. And that's exactly what was going on with this ship. Yes, it is one massive model, but there's a lot of repeated patterns. There's a lot of repeated sections. There's a lot of putting the same colour down in the same way on the same bit. You're just doing it on the other side now. And I hadn't really considered that. I'd gone on the basis that I like painting vehicles, I like painting terrain, therefore this should be an absolute breeze. Except that turned out to be slightly not true. In the end, it was not an absolute breeze, and I was starting to get a little bit fatigued with it. Alright, technically there's still black left to do. I can't face it. I can't face it. I've got to do something else. I've got to do something else, or I'm just going to stop painting this, because I'm losing my mind. I'm so sick of just picking out little sections of black. It's doing my head in. It's taking longer to do the little black bits than it did to spray and dry brush the entire ship. Well, actually, I don't know if that's even true. It might be getting close, but it feels like it's taking that long, and I'm losing my mind. So we're going to do something else. I'm going to move on to the metals, because really the only bits that are black that are left to do are like on the inside of the ship, which is also not helpful, because there's no way for your hand to actually get in there, which makes it even more of a faff than it already is. So, yeah, we're moving on. Metals. Metals or death, apparently.
2 seconds later.
You know what? I've changed my mind. We're not doing metals. We're not doing metals because I'm either going to go gold or iron. I'm not sure which to go for yet. Gold, I think, is more traditional and would make more sense in terms of being able to paint things gold, like gold leaf. But I really like painting like iron and silver colours. And I feel like there's a lot of warm tones on this anyway. A lot of kind of orangey tones and brown tones. And gold would just be another warm tone on top of a lot of warm tone. So I'm thinking I might go for the iron route. But that means I've got a choice. Because if I do go gold, I could do these sections of wood a nice sort of greeny turquoise colour, because that would give a bit of contrast to gold. Or if I'm going iron, I could do these red, which actually could pop really nicely. Which is, again, it'd be more warm, but it would be a little bit more warm with a lot of cold around it. So I'm kind of tempted to just go for red. I'm kind of tempted to just go for red, go for it, see what happens, and then, I mean, if it doesn't work, I can always go over it again, but I feel like it could look decent. So let's go red. Let's go red. Decisive. Let's go red. Getting a colour onto this that wasn't black for the first time in what felt like days but was actually only a couple of hours, that felt really, really good. All I did was a couple of coats of deep red, and then I dry brush and stippled some blood red, both by scale 75, and then added a bit of that all-purpose, beautiful ice yellow to the blood red, just for that finishing lightness on the edges and the centre parts of that little roof section. It felt so good to paint those bits. Hours of painting black, however, had already done too much damage. Update time, I've had to put it together just so I can look at it in its not entirety, because I've still got the masts to do and I haven't done anything other than base coat them, but I had to put the rest of the ship together just to see if I've done anything in the last 4 hours, because I really started to feel like nothing was happening, like nothing was changing. And I think quite a lot has changed, and I think the stuff that I have done totally needed to be done. Like the stuff that was made black had to be made black because it looked like overspray from an airbrush. It looked super lazy because I wasn't intending to leave it that way. But for a while I thought, is there any point doing this? Is anyone going to notice or care? But the answer is, I would have noticed, and I would have cared, and eventually it would have bugged me. And I've done it now, and it's out of the way now, so having done that, and done the red on the little roofs, I've got to tidy up around there, but now we can do metallics, and I hate to say this, that is what I'm treating as the final treatment for the main body of the ship. Still got to do the masts. I've also just realised, again, I keep forgetting, I haven't done any of the cannons. I haven't even put them together. So that's a thing that I'll need to do at some point. I might class that as accessories and just not bother for now. That's terrible. No, we'll see. We'll see. Metallics, then masts. I've got to take a break now. I've got a mandated break because I've got to go and deal with children. But we'll catch back up probably tonight again. Dear God, what am I doing? That's exactly what I did. I came back later that evening and I started working on the metallics for the ship. Now some of this stuff could well be intended to be more wood, or more black wood in the case of mine, but I wanted a little bit of contrast in there. I wanted something a little bit shiny, a little bit different. So I just stippled some dark silver from Monument Hobbies Pro Acryl range onto the bits that I wanted to look like metal, and what you're seeing here is the only footage that I remembered to get. I was starting to fall apart. We're back, it's day 3. I'll be honest, I painted some more yesterday. I painted quite a bit more. I did all the metallics and stuff. I totally forgot to turn the camera on. I just didn't do it. I think I'm just losing my mind painting this ship. All I can think about is ship. That's all I can do. It's just ship. So, we've done pretty much the metallics. Super quick, super easy, because I just dry brushed them and left it at that, because that's totally fine. We want it in a playable state and it'll be playable with that. The picture's going to be slightly different because that's the light for my camera and it's fully charged. It was also plugged in, except the switch no longer does anything. So apologies for the lighting and the rest of this, but it's broke. It's broke and I don't know how to fix it, so we're just going to go without. We've got this to a decent enough standard. I know I need to do the hatches as well. I've forgotten about the hatches, I've forgotten about the cannons. The hatches at least should be nice and quick and easy, but we need to do the masts first. I want masts on this ship because then it'll feel like we've really got somewhere, right? Then it'll feel like this is presentable. So we're going to do the masts next. Honestly, they're mostly just going to get airbrushed and then probably left alone. Apart from the rigging we'll have to figure something out, but the actual masts themselves, they're going to get blasted one colour of brown, then they're going to get blasted another colour of brown, and if I'm feeling really, really adventurous, I might dry brush a little bit of ice yellow here and there. I might not. We'll see how it goes. I'm sure I'm not the only one that this happens to, but sometimes when I've been painting a model and it just hasn't felt like it's gone quite as I'd wanted, or I didn't have enough time, or I set myself an unrealistic standard for how long I had to paint it, it can start to feel like a bit of a drag. And the ship was starting to feel like a bit of a drag until this last stretch, until I started working on the masts, until I had that moment of realising that with just a little bit more work, this was done. Not perfect, not the best thing I've ever painted, but for now, it would be done. When I realised that, I got that enthusiasm back and I felt that excitement of seeing something table ready, and it pushed me over the finish line. And getting through that slump of just not really wanting to paint anymore ended up being completely worth it. Sure, it's not perfect, and I'm probably going to go back and revisit a few areas, but I said I wanted to paint this ship in about 2 days, and I painted this ship in about 2 days. And now the only thing that's really left to do is the most traditional part of finishing a miniature, and that's putting it on a spinny plinth and showing off to all of your friends. Now I say that this is finished, but of course there is more to do, but you know what? I wanted this thing tabletop ready, and it's tabletop ready. Yes, I need to actually do something with the cannons, they're still on the sprues, and there's plenty of sections where I'd like to tidy it up, but this went from being bare plastic to something that I'd be happy to put down on the table and use for D&D in the space of a few days, and I feel pretty good about that. And let's face it, it's not going anywhere. I'm not going to get rid of it, I'm not going to chuck it out, I'm not going to give it away, I'm not going to sell it. I really want to keep this, and I want it to be a mainstay of my D&D campaigns because it's awesome. Which also means that I've got all the time in the world to go back and fix those little things that I'm not happy with right now. It kind of makes me wonder just how many miniatures I've painted that I've thought to myself, that's totally finished. and how many I've decided at some point I'll go back and do a little bit more to. Now that I'm looking at that ship, and now I'm looking at how quickly I managed to get that done, and just how much extra there is to do, I think it's fair to say that at this point, I don't know that any miniature is properly finished. At least not for me. A huge thank you once again to Archon Studio and their Dungeons & Lasers Port Haven campaign for sponsoring this video, and thank you again for them sending this ship over in the first place. I hope you've enjoyed this video. It's been something a little bit different to what we usually do, but I've really enjoyed it, both constructing, painting eventually, and making this as a whole. Do use the link in the description if you're going to back Port Haven. It'll be in the pinned comment as well. And thank you very much for watching. I'll see you for the next one.